Hi everyone, this video is going to kind of move away from looking at Weimar and instead start looking at the early rise of the Nazi Party and how Hitler came to be involved. So your starter today is a bit of a philosophical question rather than a fact-based question. I want to know what you think is more important in a political party, the leader or the movement and their ideas. And I'd like you just to give a quick explanation why. And I'd like you to do that in the chat box. So in a moment, you're going to pause the video, give yourself a date and a title, and then I'd like you to put the task in the chat box. So what is more important when deciding kind of who to vote for, the leader or their ideas, and explain why in a sentence. So let's go through some key words we're going to need in today's lesson. You've got the NSDAP, which is the Nazi Party. Now it stands for the National Socialist German Workers' Party. We'll go through that in a bit more detail later on. Führer is a German word for leader, but actually Hitler kind of developed it into mean a bit more than that. It's about control and power and protection. It becomes quite a powerful word that Hitler uses. The word Reich has many meanings. Mostly just think about empire, Germany. We tend to just use it as the country Germany or the government. Sturmbannteilung is also known as the SA, or they're originally the Nazi Protection Squad. So you're going to need to pause the video and get down those 4 keywords, please. So before we go any further, I'd just like to recap the context. So we're effectively starting Unit 3 about Hitler's rise to power. So it's important we set Hitler's rise to power in context so we understand what's going on. There are many problems in Germany that we've learnt. We've talked about the reliance on American loans that Stresemann organises through the Dawes and Young Plan and everything else like that. And that's a problem because, as we know, in 1929, there's going to be the Wall Street crash, and that's going to leave America and therefore Germany broken. Germany is also embarrassed and weakened by the Treaty of Versailles. So they're embarrassed because they've had to accept the blame for causing the war. And at the end of the day, they lost and they weren't invited to sign that Treaty of Versailles. They're also massively weakened because they're only allowed a certain number of soldiers. They're not allowed certain weaponry, which is leaving Germany unable to defend herself, really. You've got the Dolchstoß theory against politicians, which is the stab in the back theory that the Weimar government stabbed Germany in the back by signing the Treaty of Versailles and therefore they couldn't be trusted. That also links into the idea of having a weak government. The Weimar government found it very difficult to make decisions because they rarely had a majority. There's lots of uprisings that you've looked at, particularly the Kapp-Putsch and the Spartacist uprising that try and take control. So there's a lot of kind of obvious unhappiness in society. There is important to note, though, that there are some successes under Stresemann, but obviously he dies 3 weeks before the Wall Street crash. So, yeah, that leads to a lot of problems that Hitler exploits later on. If you weren't sure of any of those, I would suggest maybe pausing the video and giving yourself a subtitle like I have and just getting down those red points. And feel free to shorten them if you would like. So let's have a think about how Hitler made a name for himself as a politician. Because it doesn't really start as you would imagine. Hitler's quite a passionate politician in the end. It doesn't start off that way. So it all kind of starts with World War One, and Hitler takes the loss of Germany losing World War One quite personally. And after the war, he joins the military intelligence unit. So he effectively becomes a spy. and he's tasked with spying on a right-wing nationalist party called the DAP, or the German Workers' Party. You might see the familiarity in the word. And when he was there, even though he was meant to be spying on them, he actually quite liked some of their policies, and he discovered he was a very good public speaker. So he's kind of found himself in a bit of a slump in his life. You know, his beloved country has lost a war. There's all these parties going against the government. And then he kind of finds something that he is good at. And that's massive for him on a personal level and a professional level. And he's so good at public speaking that Drexler, who's the leader of the DAP, actually asks Hitler to join the party. So that's how he gets involved with politics for the first time. He starts off as a spy, but then he actually ends up joining because he quite likes it. So please pause the video, do yourself a subheading, and get those points down. Hitler, in his speeches, is very specific, and he chooses to look at certain themes, particularly things like Dolstos, so that stab in the back theory, Versailles, and all the problems it's caused Germany and how unfair it is, Weimar and their weaknesses, and of course Jews and how everything wrong in Germany is essentially their fault. But keep in mind some of the problems facing Germany that we looked at the start. You've got access to education, taxes, the army and the military being reduced, jobs being very hard to find, no healthcare. So just have a think to yourself, why would Hitler's speeches on these themes appeal to people? And just pop your answers in the chat box. So why would Hitler's speeches against politicians, the Treaty of Versailles and Jews appeal to people? Why would they want to listen to him? So let's start looking at the things Hitler and Drexler actually do, because in history we like to look at facts. So this is the start of the plan. Hitler and Drexler rename their party the National Socialist German Workers' Party, also known as the NSDAP or the Nazis for short. Now, National Socialism is a political ideology, a bit like communism is. But National Socialism means they want everyone to work together, but for the benefit of the country. So communism is everyone working together for the individual, but National Socialism is all about supporting the country. And it's also here where they adopt the idea of Führerprinzip, or the idea of one ruling leader, the Führer, which is obviously Hitler's main goal. So please pause the video and get down those 3 points. But they also come up with another part of their plan known as the 25-point programme, which isn't very creatively named, but it's just their manifesto or list of all of their ideas that they want for Germany. And this includes the union of all Germans to form a greater Germany, the scrapping of the Treaty of Versailles, no Jews are allowed to be citizens of Germany, only citizens can vote, businesses are to be nationalised, which just means the government takes control. Land will be taken off of people and redistributed. Religious freedom for all, as long as it didn't threaten Germany, which is deliberately vague. And the Reich will create a strong central government. So in the chat box, I'd like you just to write down the most familiar sounding point. So what do you most associate with Hitler and why? And then you're going to need to pause this video. You're probably going to want a little subheading, 25-point program, because this is a massive document that you'll need to know about. And you're going to need to get down all of those points, I'm afraid. I've already taken out the less memorable ones, but you will be expected to know all of these. So pause the video, subheading 25-point program, get down those points, and then type in the chat box the ones you are most familiar with for Hitler. You also need to know about the Sturmabteilung, or the SA. Now, they're also known as brown shirts because, you've guessed it, they wear brown shirts. Now, they're the Nazi protection squad, and they're elite soldiers who have got a background in gymnastics and fitness. And they're originally used to disrupt meetings of rival parties. So we're going to learn a bit more about them later on, but you do just need to know that they are first formed here. So you're going to need to pause the video again, do yourself a subheading, and get down those points. And I'd also like you to suggest why they are wearing a military-style uniform. What does that tell you about their purpose for Hitler? Last task then is to retry your starter task. That's a bit of a weird concept, kind of going back to look at something you've already done, but I'm going to ask you to kind of quantify your explanation a bit more. I'm asking you the exact same question: what is more important, the leader or the movement and ideas? And you're going to need to explain. But you're going to have to specifically think about this now in terms of Hitler's early involvement in politics. So you're going to need to think about why Hitler appealed. So he's a great public speaker. He attracts people to listen to him. Not necessarily, they don't have to agree with the policies, but they'll agree with him. He's a war hero. He is quite a strong leader. Or do you think it might be his ideas? So the fact that he is saying the Jews are responsible for all the problems, the politicians are responsible for all the problems, I can solve it. Which of those two is more important to people who are voting? And you're going to need to do this as a P paragraph. So that's point. So what is more important? Evidence, so anything you've looked at in today's lesson can be used, and explanation, so you need to explain why that is more important than the other option. And yes, you do need to make a decision. And then you need to email this to your teacher as proof that you have completed the lesson. So pause the video and do this now, please. You may do it directly into an email should you wish. And of course, don't forget to complete your Show My Homework quiz 3 times. Bye!